I held it like it was mine. Never thought I'd have to give it back. I wore this life like it would stay, like it was built for me that way. Every breath, every right felt like something I could cite. I caught in mine without a doubt, never question what it's about. Just move within a given frame and learn to answer to a name. But nothing ever said its own. I just lived like it was alone. None of this was ever mine. Not this voice, not this time, not the ground beneath my feet, not the people that I meet. I held it close, I called it me, but it was just a sign to be. And every part I tried to claim was something passing through my name. The things I loved, the things I feared, the way I spoke, the way I cared, all of it just came and went. Never something permanent. Even thoughts I thought were true felt less solid the more I knew. Like borrowed lines I learned to say till something took them all away. And I don't know when I began to mistake alone for who I am. None of this was ever mine. Not this body, not this mind, just a space I moved within, till I learned to call it skin. What is ownership in a world that shifts, where everything moves and nothing sticks? Do we possess or just receive for a while before we leave? And if it all was passing through, then what was ever me or you? Just open hands that tried to hold what was never ours to hold. Now I walk lighter than before, not reaching out to claim no more. Not at a loss, not out of pain, just seeing clearer what remains. And what remains ain't what I had. Not the good, not the bad, just something simple, something true. I was never meant to keep it through. None of this was ever mine. And somehow that feels more aligned. Not stripped away, not left behind, just never owned at any time. And when it goes, I won't resist. Can't lose what never could exist. There's something mine to hold or keep, just something than I was lent to be. Yeah, you don't lose life. You return it. Who receive the love? I learned early how to adjust myself, how to soften truth around certain ears, how to hide the parts that made people uneasy, how to make my darkness disappear. So I became easier to hold, easier to introduce in crowded rooms. Learn the exact shape of likability and wore it like polished shoes. Every rejection taught refinement, every silence trained disguise, till honesty itself started feeling dangerous, like standing naked beneath judgmental eyes. And Lord, the loneliest thing in this world is being loved for a version of yourself you had to manufacture. I became a stranger while trying to be loved, bend my soul till it fit their hands. Now every compliment feels misplaced, like applause for a man I don't understand. 'Cause they love the edited language, the safer shadow I designed, while the real me sat somewhere distant, watching quietly from behind. Funny thing about emotional survival, it rarely looks dramatic at first. No thunder, no collapse, no final goodbye, just little betrayals rehearsed. A laugh that wasn't fully honest, a silence where truth should have stood, another moment choosing acceptance over being deeply understood. And each compromise felt harmless, too small to mourn alone, till one day my reflection looked familiar, but no longer felt like home. 'Cause human beings can't survive invisibility long enough to confuse it with peace. Yeah, I became a stranger while trying to be loved, and nobody even noticed the exchange. 'Cause from the outside I looked successful, while internally I felt rearranged. Now these old blues sound painfully accurate, like confessions soaked in smoke and regret. Men singing from identity so fractured, they can't remember who they were before they bent. Maybe that's the hidden violence of society. Not hatred, not cruelty, but conditional acceptance. The quiet pressure to become digestible, presentable, convenient, until authenticity starts feeling socially dangerous. So people amputate pieces of themselves gradually for connection, for approval, for survival. And afterward, they wonder why being loved still feels lonely. And now I sit beneath these dying neon lights, listening to whiskey and guitars collide, feeling every abandoned version of myself gather silently inside. And this old voice sounds rough tonight, not from age, but accumulated disguise. 'Cause pretending for too many years leaves permanent smoke inside your lungs and eyes. Sometimes I wanna disappear completely, just to hear my original thoughts again, without the noise of expectation, without performing for another human being. Yeah, I became a stranger while trying to be loved. And somewhere along the road, I forgot which parts of me were real and which were built to keep people close. Still these blues keep trembling through me, like the last honest thing I own. Every note pulling buried truths upward from places I stopped showing. And maybe the saddest thing a man can realize ain't that nobody loved him. It's realizing the real version of him never truly got the chance to be loved at all. Some people lose relationships, and some people I thought becoming a man meant becoming strong. Nobody told me strength would cost me almost everything soft inside me. They praised me every time I stayed quiet, every time I swallowed pain, every time I carried heavy things without letting my face complain. So I learned early how to harden, how to lock emotions underground, how to answer heartbreak with silence, how to never let weakness make a sound. And the world rewarded that performance, called it discipline, called it pride, while loneliness grew like winter vines, wrapping slowly around my insides. And Lord, people admire emotionally unavailable men, right until they realize there's nobody home behind the armor. Nobody told me becoming strong meant becoming alone, meant carrying every burden quietly till silence replaced home. Now every relationship feels distant, every conversation feels rehearsed, 'cause the man built to survive everything forgot how to let himself be heard. There were nights I almost opened up, almost let the truth escape my chest. But decades of conditioning tightened like chains around every breath. 'Cause vulnerability felt dangerous, like stepping naked into cold rain. I knew how to carry suffering privately, but not how to share pain. And women called me hard to reach. Friends said I looked emotionally gone, but they never saw the frightened child still hiding beneath the man acting strong. 'Cause some boys aren't raised to feel, they're raised to endure. Yeah, nobody told me becoming strong meant becoming alone, meant confusing emotional numbness from maturity fully grown. Now these old blues sound brutally honest, like confessions from tired men who built such thick emotional walls they can't get back inside themselves again. Maybe masculinity was never the problem. Maybe fear was. Fear disguised as toughness, fear disguised as composure, fear disguised as independence. Because little boys quickly learn the world often loves men most when they require nothing emotionally, so they amputate tenderness to survive, trade honesty for control, trade connection for dignity. And afterward, they wonder why success still feels empty. Now I sit beneath these midnight neon lights, listening to old electric blues, hearing generations of broken men trying to sing feelings they were never taught to use. And this guitar shakes beneath my hands like it knows exactly where I bled. Every note sounding like loneliness, too old and deep to fully name. Sometimes I envy people who cry easily, who can let sorrow leave their skin. 'Cause mine stayed trapped for so many years, it started turning inward within. Yeah, nobody told me becoming strong meant becoming alone, meant surviving every battle while slowly losing what made life feel warm. Still I walk these rainy streets at midnight, with silence living in my veins. A man applauded for his toughness, while quiet disappearing from pain. And maybe the cruelest thing society ever taught men was that being needed mattered more than being known. Some men don't die from weakness, they die from carrying strength for too long. When I was a boy, I thought becoming a man meant becoming strong. Nobody told me strength would cost me almost everything soft inside me. They praised me every time I stayed quiet, every time I swallowed pain, every time I carried heavy things without letting my face complain. So I learned early how to harden, how to lock emotions underground.
There comes a point in some men's lives where survival becomes so important. They accidentally kill everything inside themselves that made survival worth it. I don't remember exactly when it happened. Pain rarely announces when it wins. It just keeps arriving in small portions till numbness quietly settles in. At first I still reacted honestly, still cried when something broke apart, still believed emotions were sacred, still trusted the language of the heart. But life kept teaching harsher lessons. People left, dreams collapsed, time moved cold, and eventually feeling everything deeply started becoming dangerous to hold. So I adapted the way frightened humans always do. The man I became was built to survive, not to feel. Built from scar tissue and silence, built from learning how to conceal. Now every emotion arrives delayed, like echoes from another room, and every beautiful moment touches me a second too late to bloom. People think numbness feels peaceful, but numbness ain't peace at all. It's watching your own life happen from behind an invisible wall. Food loses flavor slowly, music loses color too. Even love starts feeling distant, like sunlight filtered through smoke and blue. And the cruelest part is nobody notices, 'cause numb men still go to work, still answer text and pay their bills, still know exactly how to function heard. Lord, the world rewards emotional suppression, then act surprised when souls start disappearing. The man I became was built to survive, and survival became my cage. 'Cause somewhere along the endless pressure, I traded feeling for staying safe. Now these blues sound clinically honest, like evidence from a crime scene. So every guitar bend another symptom of a spirit learning not to unfold. Maybe human beings were never designed to carry this much unprocessed sorrow. Maybe the nervous system eventually protects itself by shutting doors internally. 'Cause there's only so much heartbreak, only so much disappointment, only so much emotional abandonment a soul can absorb before it chooses numbness over destruction. And maybe depression ain't always sadness, maybe sometimes it's the funeral after feeling died.
whiskey burning through my veins, trying to remember what wonder felt like before survival rewired my brain. And this old electric guitar beside me cries harder than I know how to anymore, like it's mourning the emotional language I don't fully speak no more. Sometimes I envy people still capable of being shattered by love or grief, 'cause at least they still feel life directly instead of through protective disbelief. Yeah, the man I became was built to survive, but not to fully live. And now I carry years of emptiness with nothing left to give. Still I walk these rainy streets at midnight like a ghost wearing human skin, searching every song and every silence for the place where feeling ended within. And maybe the deepest tragedy in life, hey, when pain destroys a person, it's when pain rebuilds them into someone who can no longer feel enough to know they're alive. Some people break loudly, and some people become frighteningly functional right after their soul goes numb.
Some people are taught they deserve love simply because they exist. Others spend their whole lives trying to earn permission to take up space. I can't remember when it started. Maybe somewhere in my youth, that quiet feeling deep inside me that I had to justify my truth. So I became useful to everybody, learned to earn my place each day. Thought if I gave enough of myself, the emptiness might finally fade away. I became the listener, the helper, the one who stayed when others ran. 'Cause I believe being needed was the closest thing to being valued as a man. And Lord, there's a dangerous loneliness inside people who think love must be earned. I spend my whole life waiting to feel worthy of existing, like my soul needed permission slips before it could stop apologizing. Every achievement felt temporary, every compliment dissolved too fast. 'Cause no amount of outside praise could reach the wound buried in my past. People think insecurity sounds loud, but mine arrived soft and refined. It sounded like overworking, like perfectionism disguised as pride. It sounded like answering every message, like never asking others for too much, like saying I'm good automatically even when life stopped
feeling human to touch. And the cruelest part about self-rejection is how invisible it can become. A man can spend decades hating himself quietly, while everybody else calls him strong. 'Cause if a child grows up feeling conditional, he becomes an adult addicted to proving himself. Yeah, I spent my whole life waiting to feel worthy of existing, turning exhaustion into identity, turning self-erasure into ambition. Now these old blues sound brutally honest, like confessions wrapped in smoke and shame. Every note another reminder of how hard I work just to feel acceptable in my own name. Maybe the deepest wound a human being can carry is the belief that their existence requires justification. Because then life stops becoming experience and becomes performance. You don't rest. You don't receive love naturally. You don't feel peace. You negotiate constantly with your own right to exist. And eventually exhaustion settles into the bones, because no human soul was designed to earn existence every single day. Now I sit beneath old neon lights with whiskey trembling in my hand, listening to tired blues musicians sound like broken prophets trying to understand. And this guitar cries low beside me, like it knows what I became. A man who spent his entire lifetime trying to outrun invisible shame. Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if I'd learned love without conditions, if my heart had grown in gentleness instead of survival and submission. Yeah, I spent my whole life waiting to feel worthy of existing. And somewhere inside all that striving, I forgot life was never supposed to be earned. Still I walk these rainy streets at midnight, carrying old exhaustion through my veins, searching every song for evidence that maybe I was enough before the pain. And maybe the saddest thing a person can lose ain't love, ain't youth, ain't even hope. Maybe it's the ability to believe they deserve to exist before they accomplished anything at all. Some people spend life chasing dreams, and some people spend life chasing proof that they were never a mistake. I can't remember when it started. Maybe somewhere in my youth, that quiet feeling deep inside me that I had to justify my truth. So I became useful to everybody, learned to earn my place each day. Thought if I gave enough of myself, the emptiness might finally fade away. I became the listener, the helper, the one who stayed when others ran. I believe being needed was the closest thing to being valued as a man. And Lord,
no crash, no fire, just time passing and something missing. Nothing ever broke, nothing ever burned. No sharp lesson, nothing I clearly learned. Days just folded into one more day, and slowly something slipped away. No goodbye, no final scene, no moment loud enough to mean. Just quiet hours, soft and thin, and less of me inside my skin. And I kept going like people do, never asking if it was true. Nothing ever happened, that's the weight I bear. No single wound, but the damage is there. No point to blame, no line to cross, just waking up already lost. I got no story I can't explain, no clear sorrow, no defined pain, just an emptiness I can't defend from a life that didn't end. I saw people fall, I saw them rise, saw meaning live in others' eyes. They spoke of change, of things that break, of roads they chose, of risks they take. But I stood still in a moving stream, never asleep but never a dream. And every step I didn't choose became another thing to lose. Yeah, absence don't scream, it barely exists, but it leaves behind a silent abyss. Nothing ever happened, still I fade away, not in a moment, but day by day. No loud collapse, no final cry, just less to live for, asking why. What is lost without an event? What is life that was never spent? If nothing breaks and nothing ends, do we still count what never begins? And who do you blame when there's no mistake, when it's all the chances you didn't take? Just a quiet drift, a subtle decline, no sharp edge, just passing time. Now I sit with hours that feel too wide, like there's nowhere left for me to hide. Not from pain, but from the lack of something I can't get back. And maybe I lived in some small way, in all the things I let decay. But living ain't just breathing air, it's knowing you are really there. Nothing ever happened, that's the truth. No stolen years, no wasted youth, just time that moved and I stayed still. A quiet loss without a will.
lost in a crowd. Yeah. Some lives don't fall apart, they just never come together.
You ever sit alone at night and feel like your life already happened, even though you're still here? Like you're no longer a man living, just a collection of memories wearing skin. There was a time my heart moved reckless, back when every road felt wide, when the world still carried mystery and I still carried fire inside. I remember dancing through cheap apartments, laughing hard enough to lose my breath, back before survival slowly turned every beautiful thing into something temporary and left. Now those moments feel archaeological, fragments buried underneath the years, like evidence of someone vibrant, lost beneath accumulated fears. And Lord, memory gets heavier with age, because eventually it outweighs the present. By the end of my life, I was more memory than person, more echoes than desire, more reflection than becoming. Every room I entered carried ghosts, every song reopened old names, till I no longer knew if I was still living or just replaying emotional remains. Funny thing about getting older, nobody warned you about this part, the gradual transformation from participant into witness of your own heart. You stop expecting transformation, stop believing reinvention waits ahead, and slowly your inner world becomes crowded with conversations unfinished and emotionally dead. I started measuring time differently, not by dreams, but disappearances. Who left, who died, who changed, who stopped answering existence with tenderness. 'Cause eventually life stops feeling like possibility and starts feeling like aftermath. Yeah, by the end of my life, I was more memory than person, carrying entire decades internally like old rain trapped inside curtains. Now these blues sound ancient tonight, like records left behind after war. Every note dragging history through silence, across a soul too tired to want more. Maybe consciousness itself becomes unbearable with time. Because human beings are forced to carry every version of themselves simultaneously. The child, the dreamer, the broken lover, the exhausted survivor. None of them ever fully disappear. They pile inside the nervous system, layer after layer, until identity itself starts collapsing under remembrance. And maybe aging ain't the body weakening. Maybe aging is memory slowly replacing presence. Now I sit beneath dying neon lights, watching rain distort the street below, feeling like one more forgotten blues song the city used to know. And this guitar cries through my fingers like it's trying to summon former days. But every melody arrives too late to resurrect what time erased. Sometimes I speak old names out loud just to hear they once were real. 'Cause memory becomes a second religion when the future no longer feels. Yeah, by the end of my life, I was more memory than person, a museum of vanished feelings, still somehow breathing in the dark. And maybe that's why old men grow quiet. It ain't wisdom like people claim. It's exhaustion from carrying entire cemeteries inside their brains. And maybe the saddest thing about being human is that long before the body dies, parts of the soul already begin living only in memory. Some people fade away physically, and some people become ghosts inside themselves, years before they disappear. There was a time I stayed alive because I believed things would get better. Then one day, without noticing exactly when, I kept living for no reason at all. Just habit. Mornings stopped feeling like beginnings. It started feeling like repetition. Same ceiling, same coffee, same tired body, moving through another obligation. I still made my bed like a decent man, still answered people when they spoke, still carried conversations carefully, like cracked glass trying not to choke. But somewhere deep beneath the routine, hope quietly packed its things and left. No dramatic goodbye, no final warning, just an absence I eventually accepted. And Lord, human beings can adapt to emptiness in terrifying ways. I stayed alive out of habit, not hope. Like an old train still moving, long after running out of coal and smoke. Every day became maintenance, every smile another road, and every breath felt less like living, more like muscle memory of the soul. People think despair looks obvious, like tears or screams or shattered walls. But sometimes despair wears clean shirts, pays taxes, returns missed calls. Sometimes it learns to speak politely, learns exactly when to laugh, while internally feeling disconnected from every future and every past. I stopped making long-term promises, stopped imagining who I might become, 'cause imagination itself grew painful once hope stopped speaking through my lungs. 'Cause the opposite of happiness ain't sadness, it's emotional surrender. Yeah, I stayed alive out of habit, not hope. And that realization hit harder than every heartbreak I ever wrote. Now these blues sound terrifyingly honest, not dramatic, just worn thin, like music made by men too tired to pretend tomorrow means something again. Maybe the soul doesn't collapse all at once. Maybe it erodes gradually, through repetition without meaning, through surviving without connection, through years spent emotionally postponing yourself, until one day you realize you're no longer living toward anything, you're just continuing. And maybe that's why modern loneliness feels so heavy, because people aren't only starving for love, they're starving for reasons. Now I walk beneath these neon shadows, where rainwater mirrors broken light, feeling like a man the world forgot to bury, still wandering through the night. And this old guitar cries beside me, like it understands what I became, a body fluent in survival, with a spirit too exhausted to explain. Sometimes I sit completely still, just listening to refrigerators hum, wondering how many human beings are alive tonight without truly feeling anyone home inside them. Yeah, I stayed alive out of habit, not hope. Kept breathing automatically, like a prayer spoken by rote. And maybe that's the quietest tragedy. A person doesn't need to die to slowly disappear from existence. Sometimes all it takes is losing the emotional reason they once had to remain. Some people fight to stay alive, and some people just never learn how to stop. I held it like it was mine. Never thought I'd have to give it back. I wore this life like it would stay, like it was built for me that way. Every breath, every right felt like something I could cite. I called it mine without a doubt, never questioned what it's about. Just moved within a given frame and learned to answer to a name. But nothing ever said its own. I just lived like it was alone. None of this was ever mine. Not this voice, not this time, not the ground beneath my feet, not the people that I meet. I held it close, I called it me, but it was just a sign to be. And every part I tried to claim was something passing through my name. The things I loved, the things I feared, the way I spoke, the way I cared, all of it just came and went. Never something permanent. Even thoughts I thought were true felt less solid the more I knew. Like borrowed lines I learned to say, till something took them all away. And I don't know when I began to mistake alone for who I am. None of this was ever mine. Not this body, not this mind, just a space I moved within, till I learned to call it skin. What is ownership in a world that shifts, where everything moves and nothing sticks? Do we possess or just receive for a while before we leave? And if it all was passing through, then what was ever me or you? Just open hands that tried to hold what was never ours to own. Now I walk lighter than before, not reaching out to claim no more. Not out of loss, not out of pain, just seeing clearer what remains. And what remains ain't what I had, not the good, not the bad, just something simple, something true. I was never meant to keep it through. None of this was ever mine, and somehow that feels more aligned. Not stripped away, not left behind, just never owned at any time. And when it goes, I won't resist. Can't lose what never could exist. There's something mine to hold or keep, just something I was lent to be. Yeah, you don't lose life, you return it. You know what terrified me the most? Not failure, not death, not loneliness. It was the moment I realized I had no idea who I was when nobody was watching. Every room demanded something different, a different mask, a different tone. So I learned the art of adaptation till performance started feeling like home. I knew exactly when to smile warmly, exactly when to lower my eyes, exactly how to sound sincere enough to keep suspicion from my inner life. And people loved me for it mostly, said I was thoughtful, calm, mature, never realizing every interaction felt emotionally choreographed and rehearsed. And Lord, if a man performs long enough, eventually even his soul forgets what was ever real. One day I realized I had been performing my entire life. Every laugh slightly calculated, every dream carefully sanitized. Now I don't know where the act begins or where the real me disappeared. 'Cause survival taught me authenticity was something dangerous to reveal. I performed strength when I was drowning, performed peace while losing sleep, performed confidence in crowded places while carrying shame too deep to speak. Perform love without vulnerability, perform wisdom without inner calm, performed having purpose beautifully while emotionally coming undone alone. And the applause became addictive because approval softened pain. But every compliment fed the character while the real self starved again. 'Cause people can only love the version of you they're allowed to see. Yeah. Turning instinct into presentation, turning existence into a role design. Now these old blues sound painful and naked, like truth stripped down to bone. Men singing from identity so fractured, they no longer feel human alone. Maybe society doesn't destroy people directly. Maybe it teaches performance so early that people mistake adaptation for personality. A child learns quickly which emotions receive love, which truths create discomfort, which behaviors guarantee belonging. So authenticity gets edited gradually, not through violence, but through reward. Until one day a grown man wakes up and realizes his entire identity
was assembled for survival, not truth. Now I sit beneath these dying neon lights, listening to old electric blues, hearing exhausted men confess through music what they never dared speak openly to. And this guitar shakes beneath my fingers like it's trying to tear the mask apart. Every bent note sounding like a crack, running through the theater of my heart. Sometimes I wanna vanish completely, go somewhere nobody knows my name, just to hear one honest thought arise, without performance, shaping it again. Original self quietly died. Still I walk these rainy midnight streets like a man searching backstage after the show, trying to find the person I abandoned before the curtain rose too long ago. And maybe the deepest human tragedy ain't rejection, ain't suffering, ain't even being alone. Maybe it's spending your whole life playing a character so convincingly that nobody ever meets the real you, not even yourself. Some actors leave the stage eventually, but some people never stop performing, even in the silence, after everyone goes home.